Smart objects can save us time, storage space, and provide greater flexibility when editing. Let's find out what they're all about.
The term smart objects may sound like marketing hype, but this is how Photoshop allows you to work non-destructively with individual layers. Adjustments made to the smart object layer can be reversed at a later date with no loss in image quality. In the previous chapter, we talked about the benefits of working with vectors. Smart objects allow you to bring in vector graphics that were created outside of Photoshop without having to convert them to pixels. Let's begin with our Chapter 9 folder inside our Project Files folder and open the file Twirl Vessel 2. Going to go to full screen mode with menu bar by pressing the F key. We'll zoom in a bit here. Notice in our Layers panel, nestled between the background layer and the shape layer, we have a smart object. How do we know it's a smart object? Because the smart object icon is located in the bottom right of that image thumbnail. I'll toggle the image off and on so you can see what this smart object is. It is the flowers in the vase. Now, smart objects simply link or reference source files. It's not a file itself, it's pointing to an original file. In this case, the original flowers file is an Illustrator document. Now, before smart objects came along, when you placed an Illustrator file in Photoshop, the image was automatically rasterized. And we saw back in Chapter 8 what happens when you resize raster images. I'm going to select this smart object and go to the Edit menu and select Free Transform. Now, if I click and drag on our transform box and make the image smaller, I'll zoom in at 100% view. Because it's a vector graphic, we don't lose any image quality. I'll zoom back out again. If we changed our mind and said, oops, we didn't want to make it smaller, we wanted to go back closer to the original size, I simply go back to the Edit menu, Free Transform, and now we'll drag this and enlarge it. Right about there. I'll hit Enter to commit. And because this is a vector graphic, at 100% view, we still have nice, clean lines. I mentioned that this smart object is referencing an Illustrator file. Here's another cool thing you can do with smart objects. If I move to the Layers panel and double-click on the smart object icon, Photoshop automatically launches Illustrator where the file was originally created, and you can see our source file. If you get a warning about color settings, just click Continue. And if you don't have Illustrator, you can just sit back and watch. Now that it's in Illustrator, I'm going to make two quick changes to the image. You can simply watch what I'm doing, or you can follow along. If you'd like to follow along here, note that I have the Color panel open. You can find the Color panel under the Window menu. With the Direct Selection tool, I'm going to select these orange petals and select all of them with the same fill color and change this to blue. I'll select these petals and let's change these to a bright yellow. Now I'm going to save the Illustrator file. Watch what happens when I go back into Photoshop. Our smart object automatically updates to reflect the changes that we've just made. So if you work with images moving back and forth between Photoshop and Illustrator or another program, smart objects are going to save you a lot of time. You simply make your change to the document in its originating program, and Photoshop automatically updates the contents. One great benefit to working with a smart object is that you can replace it with another smart object and maintain all of your existing modifications. To see that in action, let's first learn how to create a smart object. Perhaps the easiest way is from the File menu, and you simply select Open as Smart Object. In our Chapter 9 folder, I'm going to open the file Guanajuato. Photoshop automatically creates a brand new document. In our Layers panel, you can see that we have a smart object. You can also create a smart object from an existing layer in your document. Let's close this image, and we don't need to save it. Back in our Chapter 9 folder, I'm going to open the file titled Vase. In our Layers panel, you can see Layer 1, a regular plain old layer, but if I go to the Layers panel and click on the flyout menu at the top, I can select Convert to Smart Object. Now I've got a Smart Object. There's another way to create a Smart Object within an existing file. Let's close this image, we don't need to save it, and back to our Chapter 9 folder, I'm going to open the file titled Frame. We're going to add a Smart Object to this image. Before I do that, I'm going to move to the Layers panel and select the background layer because I want my Smart Object to be placed right in between the background layer and the Shape 2 layer. We're going up to the File menu, and this time we're going to select Place. In the Chapter 9 folder, I'm going to select the image Face 01. This image is automatically imported as a Smart Object. It comes in with a transform box. We can use that to scale or rotate the image. So I'm going to start in the upper right corner. You can see the cursor turn into a double arrow icon. I'm going to click and drag to resize the image, taking care to hold down the Shift key. This will constrain the image to its original proportions. I just want to fit this little guy's head nicely inside the picture frame. Once I release the mouse, I can place the cursor directly over the transform box, click, and drag to move the image around. Now I can commit to these changes by simply pressing the Enter key. Now what I'd like to do is remove the areas of the image that fall outside the picture frame. The easiest way to do that is with a layer mask. In the Layers panel, I'm going to click on the Add Layer Mask icon. I now need to select the brush tool from the Tools panel. I want you to make sure that your brush is set to a hardness of 100%, and at the bottom of the Tools panel, make sure that your foreground color is set to black. Now we'll simply start painting. Keep in mind that we're just painting on the layer mask. We're not permanently throwing any image information away. Now there's one more thing I'd like to do to this image. Let me bring this up to a 100% view. But first I need to move to the Layers panel and click on the Smart Object icon to set the focus on the Smart Object as opposed to the layer mask. Now I'll go to the Filter menu. Under Sharpen, I'm going to select Unsharp Mask. I'm going to talk about sharpening in an upcoming chapter. For now, I'll just use these settings, a radius of 0.8 pixels, a threshold of 10 levels. Maybe I'll bump up the amount just a hair to 144%. I'll toggle the preview on and off. Sharpens the image up nicely without overdoing it. I'm going to hit OK. We have now added a filter to a Smart Object, and there's a very special relationship between the two that I will talk about in Lesson 4. But now comes the fun part. I've got a Smart Object with a layer mask and a filter applied. I'm now going to replace the contents of this object. In the Layers panel, I'm going to simply right-click on the PC, control-click on the Mac. Anywhere in this blue highlighted area, I get a pop-up menu, and I'm going to choose Replace Contents. In our Chapter 9 folder, let's try Face 02. We have a brand new image, reduced to the same size, moved to the same location, linked to the same layer mask, and with the same filter applied. That's the beauty of Replace Contents. You can take a Smart Object, swap out a completely different image, and all of your work is maintained. Smart Objects provide a flexible and easy way to work with multiple instances of a single object. Let's go to our Chapter 9 folder and open up the file titled Flyer. We'll zoom in a bit here. You can see in the Layers panel we have a background layer, and above that a Smart Object layer titled Strawberry. One thing we can do with Smart Objects is duplicate them. So if we want more strawberries in this image, we simply go to the Layers panel, and over the Strawberry Smart Object, right-click on the PC, control-click on the Mac, and select Duplicate Layer. We'll leave the default name for now. Next, we're going to select the Move tool. It's right here to the right of the Marquee tool. The keyboard shortcut is V. Make sure that you have this Auto Select option on. Now, we're going to click on our strawberry and drag to move the duplicate. We'll put it here over towards the center of the image. Let's make another duplicate. And back to the Layers panel. Right-click on the PC, Control-click on the Mac, Duplicate Layer. Let's select this strawberry, move it over here. We're going to add 2 more. We'll bring this one down here, and the final one we'll put over here. Now we have 5 strawberries in our image, and we can adjust them individually. Clicking with the Move tool on this strawberry, I'm going to go up to the Edit menu and select Free Transform. Moving the mouse over the right corner of the image lets me rotate it. I'm going to hit Enter to commit. Now let's click on this strawberry towards the bottom, and again the Edit menu and Free Transform, and we'll rotate this one in the opposite direction. So far there's nothing we've done to these strawberries that could not be done if they were normal regular layers. But here's the payoff. If we want to make a global change that affects all of these strawberries, we can do that in one single step. Back in the Layers panel, I'm going to double click on this Smart Object icon, and that opens up our source object. This is the strawberry from which all the others are originating. Let's pull this document out into its own separate window. I'll zoom in here at 100%, and let's make 2 obvious changes to this strawberry. Let's click on our adjustment icon and make a levels adjustment. We'll brighten it a bit by dragging to the left. We'll go back to our adjustment list and let's click on Hue Saturation. Select the On Image tool. We're going to boost the saturation of the strawberry and boost the saturation of the stem. There we go. An obvious change to the image. Now watch what happens when I save this file. We'll go to File, Save, and automatically all the strawberries in our flyer document are updated. What do you get when you add a filter to a smart object? A smart filter. And with a smart filter, you can go back and adjust your effects at any point in the future. It's non-destructive. You can even mask the filter's results. Let's get started with the File menu and select Open as Smart Object. Inside the Chapter 9 folder, let's choose, oh, I love saying this name, Guanajuato. This image was created just for us by New York illustrator Sarah Sills, so thank you, Sarah. I'm going to take this image into full screen mode with menu bar by pressing the F key on the keyboard. Zoom in just a hair. We have a smart object. Let's create a smart filter. In the Filter menu, we're going to select Filter Gallery. Let's fit the view here so that we can see the entire image on screen. In the Distort filters, I'm going to choose Diffuse Glow. I've got my graininess set to 1, a glow amount of 5, and the clear amount set to 15. And that's a very nice effect, a kind of dreamy landscape. We're going to hit OK to commit to this. Let's add a second filter. Back in the Filter menu, let's go to Lens Correction. Here we'll click on the Custom panel, and I just want to add a little bit of a vignette here. Drag this slider to the left to darken the corners. That looks pretty good. And let's change the midpoint. We'll bring that effect in even more. There we go. I'm going to hit OK to commit to that. We now have a smart object with 2 smart filters. But wait, we just went to the Filter menu. There is no Smart Filter menu. Aha! Whenever you have a smart object, any filter applied to it becomes a smart filter. Well, what's so smart about smart filters? Well, for one thing, in the Layers panel, we can toggle them on or off. I can toggle off our entire collection of filters. I could toggle them off individually. Even better than that, if I double-click on a filter name, the filter is called back up and I can go and redo my settings. I don't have to start from scratch. The identical settings that we used are still there. Let's cancel out of this. Another great thing about smart filters is we have a filter mask. Directly to the left of the word Smart Filters in the Layers panel, you see a white mask. If I click to select it, I can now paint on this mask. My brush tool is selected. In the options bar, let's go and drag the hardness all the way to the left. We want a nice feathered brush for this. Close this by pressing either Enter or Return on the keyboard. We want to paint with black on this white mask. I'm going to increase my brush size. And wherever I paint is masking out the effect of both filters. Now I'm going to undo that with Command Z on the Mac, Control Z on the PC. I'm going to now change the opacity of my brush to get a more useful or realistic result. If I click on the word opacity, instead of 100%, I'm going to set it down to 30%. Now when I paint, we see a much more subtle and believable result.